A strange man's on a hill being appreciated by some teenagers until he starts his flute lessons for 5th graders and does it so horribly that the girls run away. This man is Atsushi and is worried about his music test for the next day. The following day, his older sister Atsumi gives him a cozy coat and scarf because it is now cold and they both go to school together. While going to school, they talk about him being worried about the test until her sister finds Seo, who admires Atsushi's beauty, and both go their respective way. On his way, he finds Seo and shows her his cozy coat and makes a woman think that he is a flasher and runs away as he proposes to Hina to try his coat. She refuses until she agrees to try his scarf as she is cold, but then he is arrested by the police as they thought he's a player. Chapter 2. Now we change to Atsumi, who is at her high school. Jumping in time, Seo and Atsumi are spending time. Atsumi tells Seo that her meals are calcium-rich, but she won't grow anyway, so she doesn't need to drink milk as it won't make a difference, but ends up drinking milk anyway, so Seo makes fun of her. Later, they talk about her brother Atsushi, and Seo thinks he would be cute, thinking he's like Atsumi, but she denies it. When Atsumi returns home, she is welcomed by Atsushi, who immediately wants to play games, but Atsumi stops him as she needs him for shopping. While going to the store, Atsushi finds Miss Rabbit and is excited, but the man in the costume is scared by his children's attitude and only gives Atsumi candy as he thinks Atsushi is an adult. Atsushi is sad as being tall sucks, but Atsumi cheers him up by telling him that being tall is useful, and she likes him the way he is and immediately asks him to grab some flour. Then they both go out while grabbing their hands. Chapter 3. Sometime later, Seo scares Atsumi by asking her to eat their lunch together as she treats her like a child. While they're eating their lunch, Seo shares almost all her food with Atsumi, mistaking Atsumi's size for a lack of nutrients. After finishing their meal, Seo asks Atsumi who is her ideal man, while every single male student is overhearing with passion. Atsumi is taken by surprise but returns the questions, and Seo states that a man taller than her, above 180 mints, and every male student is sad as that's gigantic. But Atsumi says the same, and everyone is happy as every single male can achieve that. Seo is sad as all the tall men are hidden somewhere and starts fantasizing about Atsushi going on a horse and riding in the sunset. Meanwhile, Atsumi is trying to recover her friend from the fantasy and Atsushi is sneezing. Chapter 4. Atsushi is in his school and is about to have PE. Because of that, the boys hurry him up and he gets in from his female teacher, who runs away after seeing him making the boys question if she was in the race. After that, the warm-up begins and Atsushi doesn't have a partner, so he teams up with his sensei and is happy about it, but the sensei can't do it and runs away again. At the school's office, the sensei explains that she was in an only girls' school and she can't handle men assuming that every single grader is going to be like Atsushi, while the other teacher tells her that he's the only one like that. Meanwhile, Atsushi is with Hina and is talking about a suspicious male trying to grab children. Atsushi comforts Hina by telling her that he will protect her only to be mistaken by a pair, and ends up arrested and going home all depressed and surprised, crying in the dark by his older sister. Chapter 5. It's the bean throwing festival and Atsushi needs a demon costume, so Atsumi tells him that he could go and ask their neighbor Take. Takes home, he tells Atsushi that he has an Oni costume, and Atsushi is very happy, unaware that the costume is too scary for the children of his grade. His classmates are impressed by the costume, but not the other graders, as they are scared as hell and attack him with the beams with all their might. Hearing the scandal, Futami-sensei goes to see what's happening but bumps into Atsushi. He accidentally touches her boob and she runs away shocked. Going back home, Atsumi asks her little brother how was everything, but he tells her that he doesn't want to be a demon anymore and hated as anybody gave him candy and only attacked him. Then Atsumi returns the costume to Take, who tells her that he has the same problem, only for Atsumi to answer that he should get a job. Chapter 6. Atsushi didn't sleep well last night, so he is yawning in class as the girls ask him what kind of chocolate he likes, and when he answers that every kind, they go away happy and laughing. So his friends tell him that he should share the chocolate, as it would be bad for him to eat all of it. In the afternoon, Atsumi and Seo are doing errands until Atsumi sees that Valentine's Day is near. Seo goes overexcited as she wants to do some chocolate, but Atsumi ends up doing all the work and Seo promises her that she will give her some of the chocolate in a beautiful wrapping. Valentine comes and Atsushi receives chocolate for every girl in his grade, as even his friends have to come with their boxes to pretend that the girls gave them chocolate. At home, Atsushi is received as popular with the girls, and Atsumi warns him that he will only eat one box per day and he should share with her. Initially, Atsushi is hesitant until Atsumi opens Hina's box, revealing the disaster a 5th grader would do in the kitchen. Chapter 7. Atsumi won 3 movie tickets in a raffle and doesn't know what to do with them, so Atsushi tells her to bring him along. Atsumi is unsure as it is a loved one, but Atsushi doesn't care as he wants to go anyway, so Atsumi accepts and Atsushi goes spinning mode of happiness. The day of the movie arrives and Seo is waiting for the siblings as she expects 2 dwarfs until she sees Atsushi and becomes perplexed by his beauty. So perplexed that she mistakes everything Atsumi tells her and thinks that he is a single old man. At the movies, both of the girls were crying with the Titanic ripoff while Atsushi was sleeping. Going out, Sayo thanks both of them and is hopeful about her illegal desires as Atsushi is still sleepy as the 5th grader he is. Chapter 8. Hina invited Atsushi to her house for the Dolls Festival and he is eager to go. Still, his lack of fashion taste and takes weird clothing donations make Itsumi prevent him from going until she finds the perfect outfit for him, which is the same outfit he goes almost every day. Atsushi goes happily to Hina's house only to be received by Hina's mom, who doesn't let him enter the house thinking he is a pair, so he becomes sad. At home, Itsumi makes his cake for the doll festival and tells him they're going to eat takeout and celebrate together. This makes Atsushi happy, but Itsumi tells him that he should tell his friends to prepare their parents beforehand. Meanwhile, Hina wonders if he had a problem. Chapter 9. Once again, Take visits the siblings and gives Atsushi some of his clothes as he broke up with his ex and doesn't want to remember her anymore, but Atsushi, being the kid he is, only is happy about the clothes. Later, Asumi gives him food as a show of gratitude because he gives Atsushi every single cloth he won't use anymore, which means all of his ex's gifts. Take explains that he quit his job as he doesn't want to run with his ex, but that had a cost as his mother doesn't want to feed him anymore as he always quit his jobs because of his breakups. Asumi thinks that it's a lame excuse, but he doesn't care and talks about the past when Itsumi at some point didn't want to marry him when he took care of them at high school, and taking advantage of it he asks her if she will take care of him as promised, but Asumi all gloomy denies. So Take decides to take a part-time job as one doesn't run a marathon before walking and just ends up doing her mother's laundry for 500 yen. Chapter 10. The White Day comes, a traditional day where all the boys who got chocolate on Valentine's have to return the favor. Itsumi tells Atsushi exactly that he has to give them gifts, and Atsushi tells her that he's on that by showing her ingredients for the bakery, which makes Itsumi wants to run as she always is the one that ends up cooking, but Atsushi grabs her and stops her, pleading for her help. At last, Itsumi accepts to help and asks how many girls are the ones who gave him sweets, but not only the girls of his school, but also the neighbors gave him sweets. In the end, Itsumi prepares cookies and Atsushi makes an abstract art for Hina as he wants to make something special for her. Meanwhile, at school, Atsushi's friends are impressed by how many sweets he brings as he received a lot at Valentine's. They tell him that girls are worried about their weight, so they're going to eat them up to prevent them from blaming Atsushi for their weight, but Futomi-sensei appears and confiscates all the sweets before they can make it. Because of this, Atsushi gives a gift to Hina while the senseis are being called because a suspect was attracting large groups of children. In the end, Hina is confused as hell as she receives a weird-looking card. Chapter 11. Summer break is almost over and Atsushi is suffering as he didn't do the assigned homework. He was behaving just like Take instead of doing it, so Itsumi tells him that maybe he can't concentrate at home and suggests that he should go to the library. So he does and encounters Sayo, who confuses him with a 5th grade school teacher rather than Itsumi's little brother. After a little chat, she tells him that she has to go, and he answers that he wants her to stay with him, which she mistakes with romantic intentions and goes away even faster than her heartbeat. On the next day, Atsushi doesn't do any of his homework, so when he finds Hina, he pleads for her to see a little bit of it, but some adults make a mistake with his words of, "Let me peek a little," by some stuff and grab him away of Hina while she was with the book on hand. Chapter 12. The traffic special registration begins to prevent child and Futami-sensei instigates Atsushi to make the officers remember his face to prevent him from being arrested again. So he does so, but the officer was thinking he was hitting on her instead of going to school and became all embarrassed and frustrated. The next day, he is walking with Hina, both of them being happy that now that is safe, he can finally play with her. But once again, he is arrested and all of his items confiscated, thinking he may have done another child and was trying to with Hina. After that, Futami-sensei collects everything from her class to retrieve one more time Atsushi from the police station. Season 2, Chapter 13. The cherry blossoms start and the siblings go to the Hanami festivity where Japanese people sit under the cherry trees while blossoming. Atsushi is triggered by happiness and drags her like a rag doll, his sister, to a takoyaki stand where Take is philosophizing about how someday Atsushi will prefer dumplings over takoyaki and then wonders if someday he will marry some rich old woman, but Itsumi tells him that he should probably try to work more like his mother said. On their way to search for a stand, they find that a lot of people had become drunk early in the morning and also encounter Futami-sensei, who was also drunk with her colleagues. She mistakes initially Itsumi for his younger sister, but when he clarifies her age, another teacher drags Atsushi down and the teacher starts telling them that he has a nice body, but because of that, she has to go to the police office countless times. Fortunately, both siblings can escape from the drunken teacher as Take offers tribute because he likes dumplings before takoyaki, referring to the teacher's attributes. Chapter 14. The new school year begins and Atsushi is happy about the 1st graders until they mistake him for a teacher, which makes him scared until Futami-sensei listens to his screams for help and she helps him and tells the 1st graders that he is not a sensei, but then the students point out that then he is her boyfriend, which she immediately denies. On another hand, Atsumi is then mistaken for a child by the new students, and they start to gossip about how she is a genius child who skipped some grades, which would be true if in Japan that wasn't illegal. But Seiyo then goes on to solve the problem by making a speech for 1 hour about the incredibleness of Atsumi, which bores the living soul of all of them, and they end up going away because of this. Atsumi thanks Seiyo, while she is dying of embarrassment. Chapter 15. Hatsushi's friends are waiting for him, wondering how cool would be his bicycle, only to be disappointed by the fact that he is using training wheels. So he explains that the day he bought it, he fell too much, so Atsumi and his mother put them on to prevent him from breaking the bicycle. This makes sense to his friends, and suddenly Hina appears. She thinks that the boys were teasing Atsushi by putting some training wheels, but by looking at the red face of Atsushi, she sees that he doesn't know how to ride a bike properly, so his 3 friends propose to teach him by trial and error. They go to a green field near a river, as it won't hurt too much to fall over there, and Atsushi tries and falls, but because of Hina's support, he recovers fast. He even ran over Tetsuya and Tendo in the practice, but it wasn't for nothing, as Atsushi finally learned and he proposed to his friends to ride together, but they didn't want to go as they didn't have any energy left. Chapter 16. Futomi-sensei assigns the homework of dreams for the future, which consists of telling her what they want for their future, and Atsushi only wants to be normal, which makes everyone in the room sad. Meanwhile, Atsumi has the same homework, and Seiyo asks her what she wants to become in the future. She tells her that maybe a nurse, a policeman, or something that has a uniform, which makes Seiyo think she would be adorable in those. At home, Atsumi doesn't know what to choose, and Atsushi tells her that he chose a video game developer, but when he sees a firefighter on the TV, so he becomes indecisive. That's when Atsushi decides to go with someone that had a lot of jobs, even when Atsumi tells him that's pretty insensitive to go and ask that question with a 32-year-old unemployed and living with his mom. At Take's home, he asks the question, and Take then shows him what every single male dreamed of once in their lifetime. So in the school, Atsushi tells in front of the class that he dreams of being an adult movie actor, which infuriates the teacher. Chapter 17. Atsushi invites some friends to his home, and Atsumi then proposes to make some sweets for them, which makes Atsushi enter full spin mode with her. At night, Atsumi realizes that she made too much, as Atsushi only invited 2 of his friends who were enjoying the meal. Seeing this, Atsumi not only takes some of them to take, but also calls Seiyo, who immediately goes there. Seiyo sees Atsushi, and because of what Atsumi told her, she believes that he's the neighbor who donated his clothes to Atsumi's little brother, but also that he's unemployed, so she cheers Atsushi while giving him an encouraging speech, which confuses him and his friends. Chapter 18. Sometime later, the siblings go with their parents to some thermal baths, but they first have a problem with size, as Atsushi and Atsumi are the only one who has a perfectly fit yukata, but their parents who ordered adult ones didn't fit them. Anyway, they solved it and decided to go to the baths, but Atsumi preferred to go alone, and Atsushi went to the big baths by himself. Meanwhile, Atsumi is lost and asks a little girl for guidance, and she decides to show her where the bath is, only to guide her to the men's bath, which mortifies her. She was even more mortified when Atsushi was about to call her, but she immediately knocks him out and grabs him out of the bath. Later, their parents believed that Atsumi's behavior was because she was dizzy, but when Atsushi was about to talk, she choked him with food and then went to the baths, where she told some lady that please don't bother her. Chapter 19. The sports festival is coming, and Atsushi's friends are bored of practicing, which makes Futomi-sensei scold them, but they have a good reason for not wanting to practice more, as Atsushi was doing a Chinese tour with some of his classmates who begged mercy. At home, Atsushi wanted to participate in the family event, but both of his parents immediately fell and were injured, which makes him sad, and Atsumi tells him of not being as naive as they were acting. The next day, Atsumi was talking with Seiyo, and she explained that she was the only one who was willing to see her little brother at the sport festival, which moved Seiyo's heart even more when she explained that she would make a delicious lunch for him. The festival day arrived, and the other team got beat by Atsushi, as he was stronger and faster than the common children. The children claimed that it was unfair until they saw the scene of the Iliad where Aquilles, which in this case was Atsushi, was dragging the poor kid by the field. Then Atsumi thinks that he stands out. Chapter 20. The festival continues, and Atsumi informs Atsushi that Take is outside of the school, and he immediately goes to see him, which makes him fall into Take's trap, as he tricks him into being in the ice cream truck serving customers while he goes away. Meanwhile, Seiyo is going there, and when she sees him, she compliments how hardworking Atsushi is, mistaking this to be real work, and goes inside the elementary school. She continues being oblivious when Atsumi tells her that her neighbor is outside eating ice cream. Then Atsushi comes, and she is in the dark, believing that they are just close families. Later, the run with the legal guardian and the child begins, and Atsushi is pushed into the adult part by security, making him look like a hardcore fan of the race, and Atsumi into the children part. Because of this, Atsumi ends up losing, as the children were too fast for her. Chapter 21. Seiyo visits Atsumi once again and is surprised by seeing Atsushi sleeping. At that moment, Take visits them to give them ice cream, as he has a lot of leftovers, so Seiyo presents herself, taken by surprise Atsumi, as she thought that they had met before, because she told her that their neighbor was cool. Then the shocking reality comes to Sayo when Atsumi tells her that Take is their neighbor and the man sleeping in the living room is her little brother who was in 5th grade. This takes by surprise Sayo, who ends up sad, but with some encouraging words from Take, who told her to let the time heal this issue. She recovers and takes a decision. Chapter 22. In the morning, Atsumi has to choose what clothes Atsushi has to wear for school, but this time she was all sleepy, so she let him choose. This was a mistake, as Atsushi chose some clothes that Take hand down, but it was a tank top that was pretty transparent. At school, Futomi-sensei was perplexed by seeing Atsushi in that tank and almost fainted with embarrassment and demanded him to cover it, but he didn't have anything for it. After that, Atsushi wondered with her classmates why his tank was so weird, which all of them thought was cool, but also pretty weird. Even Hina, who was confused as to why Atsushi would choose to wear such a thing. After the school period, Atsushi and Hina were heading home together, and when they both wanted to hold hands, Atsushi once again was arrested. Chapter 23. Now it's time for Atsumi's cultural festival, and Atsushi is there with Tetsuya and Tendo. They go searching for Atsumi's classroom, and Atsushi finally seems like he belongs to that place, but he's easily scared by a teen in ghost costume. Arriving at Atsumi's classroom, Sayo received them, and Sayo's classmates thought the same as her, as they believed Atsushi's friends were Atsumi's little brothers. Then they ate some muffins that Atsumi prepared, and Sayo explained to them that Atsumi was in a play in the theater where she always portrayed children. So the children went there, and Sayo ended up guiding them when some teens wanted to give them a lecture about their couple's future. Sayo remembered the cruel reality where Atsushi was only a child in a grown-up body. Chapter 24. There's a battle royale at the school shop as the students want to grab everything they need. Sayo and Atsumi wanted to go, but Atsumi didn't like crowds, so Sayo had the brilliant idea of piggybacking her to the shop, which made the students confused and allowed them to buy their things. After that, Sayo tells Atsumi that she would love to have a younger sister, as she is an only child and would like to be called One-sama. Later that afternoon, the two of them go shopping even when Atsumi can't buy at normal shops, as she uses children's clothes, so they enjoy their evening, finalizing with dessert, as Sayo likes spoiling Atsumi. The next day, Sayo invites Atsumi again to the school's ship, and even when Atsumi brings her lunch, she decides to share time with her friend. Chapter 25. Sometime later at Atsushi's school, only a marble cake is left, so the students organize a contest that uses brains, since even the girls are going to participate in it. They choose to hide and seek, which puts Atsushi at a disadvantage as he's the tallest among them. As he was hiding, he was spotted by 2 police women who believed he was a pedophile who was children, so they started to persecute him even in heels, which is impressive, but one of them was an old woman. When the break time is over, almost every classmate of his is worried, so when Atsushi appears in the theater and is tackled by them, Futomi-sensei intervenes and explains to them that he is a student, so they act like this is the way to handle criminals. While going, the police women talked about how they could help Atsushi, as he may have a lot of problems because of his height, and it's true, since the next day, he was captured by some man believing he was children. Chapter 26. Later, Atsushi and his classmates had to jump the rope to PE, but he was too tall for normal children, so he was hit in the face because of this. So his friend suggested that he could jump in a crouch, which he did, but this was a massive leg training, as he couldn't do more than 12, which is reasonable. That evening at home, Atsumi and Sayo are studying for their upcoming exams, and Atsushi arrives and comes to the living room. Both of them welcome him, which makes Sayo happy, but then she looks at Atsushi's backpack and is faced with the cruel reality. So Atsushi asks Atsumi if she could do the dinner, which Atsumi agrees, but she proposes to go out, which delights Atsushi and drags them outside. At the restaurant, they find Take, who invites them to desserts, but because he is going to quit, which makes everyone gloomy, Atsumi tells him to find a steady job. After dinner, Atsumi and Atsushi are going home, and Atsushi becomes so happy that he lifts Atsumi, which makes him get arrested and Atsumi into custody. Season 3, May, Episode 1. We begin the story again by doing a recap about the Miyagawa siblings, where we know that it's normal in their family to have small people, so Atsushi's condition is something new. Everything was usual, including Atsushi getting arrested for being mistaken for a pet. This time, Kijima receives him and confesses to him that she can't always ignore the complaints, and he tells her not to worry about it, as he understands, but this time, he has to go to the back of the commissary, which scares the hell out of Atsushi. But this is only because Miura and Kijima have a new recruit whose name is Ano, and when they explain Atsushi's situation to her, she mocks it, telling them that Atsushi's pretending like some party and person who pretends to be younger, which infuriates Miura, and Kijima has to retire with Atsushi. Later that night, a person is in Miyagawa's residency. Episode 2. A storm hits the city, which affects Atsumi and Sayo, who are running towards Miyagawa's residency. On their way, they see Atsushi and Hina, who were soaked by the rain, so Atsumi orders them to go inside and tell Hina and Sayo to change their clothes. Because of her size, Sayo had to use Atsushi's clothes and started to smell them, thinking they smelled good. Atsushi being the kid, he is asked if they smelled bad, so she replied that no, and Atsushi assumed it was because of his favorite sweet, Yumibo of savory and cod. So Atsushi promised Sayo the next time he will give her the sweet, and Sayo thinks about him as a kid. Then Sayo and Hina depart to go back home. On their way home, Sayo was thinking about waiting for Atsushi to grow, but then she remembered that Hina would grow too, so she is shocked and showed it to Hina, who is confused, but then she makes a silly excuse about remembering that the train is about to come to make a safe. After saying goodbye to Hina, she finds on Atsushi's shirt pocket the umebo, which she eats happily, but on the other hand, Atsushi is more because he promised Sayo the same umebo. Chapter 3. This time we can see who was Miyagawa's residency and resulted to be a classmate of Itsumi, whose name is Yoshioka, and is a who considers the to be justice and Itsumi to be illegal. Meanwhile, we get to see how he is a superstar of the basketball team from the point of view of Makoto Kobayashi, who considers him to be a role model except for his inclination toward the illegal side of life. The next day, Makoto and Itsumi are compared, and Makoto mocks Itsumi by being ashamed of being compared to the dwarf of the school, but Sayo throws a massive burn by telling him, "Who is the second?" which was him. Then they are interrupted by Yoshioka, who starts complimenting Itsumi by telling her that she's illegal, which makes her angry and yells, "I'm not a legal," and Sayo tells her that that's not okay to say that out loud. Then again, Atsushi is constantly being arrested, and Officer Ano is sad as he is such a sweet good boy. Chapter 4. The new teaching intern is accepted at Atsushi's school, whose name is Kawachi-sensei. She is happy to be there, and Futomi-sensei explains to her everything she has to know except a little thing. Well, a taller thing who happens to walk by their side, Kawachi-sensei, immediately was attracted to Atsushi, so she rushes towards him thinking he is a young teacher even when Futomi-sensei tried to warn her. But then the cruel reality crashed into her when Atsushi told her that he is in 5th grade. When Atsushi goes to his classroom, he informs Tetsuya and Tendo that a new intern was in the school, but she is a grumpy one. Then Kawachi-sensei is introduced by Futomi-sensei to the students, and she is all happy, which confuses his friends, so they decide to test it on the break. While on the break, they come close, and Atsushi asks her if she can play with them. She replies, "Only a little bit." But then it becomes her desire to do something else with Atsushi and ends up angry with them for no visible reason and scared the children. At sunset, Kawachi-sensei is depressed, like Sayo and the other time, but then Futomi-sensei remembers how hard it is to be a teacher and decides to cheer her up, only to hear that Kawachi-sensei wants to eat Atsushi. This scares her, but she decides to suppress this memory in the future, which allows Kawachi-sensei to end her internship. Chapter 4. Sayo decides to take a long walk on a route that she takes when something is more in her. That something is her forbidden love with Atsushi, and the counselors of the route suggest her to be more realistic about the topic, considering the age gap between them and if the feelings of Atsushi really would reciprocate. This makes Sayo sad and thinks about wishing for a miracle, but then a beetle flies to her hair and she takes a photo, but she can't grab it as she is too scared of that demonic thing. In this case, she tries to scare him using her phone that only provokes the spawn of Satan to go into her back, which makes her even more scared, but then salvation comes when Atsushi recognizes her and the beetle and decides to take the Asian long-horned beetle and is joyful about it. But then Sayo starts to cry and Atsushi starts to worry, so he tries to comfort her. Chapter 5. This time Take is in a suit, and Miyagawa's siblings think he finally got a decent job, but in reality, he was in his 100 interview, so they immediately got disappointed. But far from that day, Take finally achieved a job in a cafeteria, and the siblings are happy for him as it's going so well that the owner tells him that he can become manager, which is Take's goal because as a manager, no one can fire him. Then Take starts to recall that this time he was renouncing all his job because every time he got a girlfriend and was dumped, the environment became toxic. So he decided to search for a job with no woman, and the owner then replied that there were no women, which makes Take apologize. Then the owner claims that he doesn't understand how Take is rejected by a woman so much, and then he suggests that Itsumi would be a perfect girlfriend, but Itsumi denies it as he is like an older brother to her, but Take's is more harmful because he just plainly rejects her by her looks, which infuriates Itsumi, and she punches him and goes away with her glass of soda. In the end, Take explains that he would only hurt her and Itsumi is just bubbling her drink. Chapter 6. Sometime later, Itsumi and Sayo are having a sister bonding-like time when Itsumi spots a little person going there and she calls him out. Makoto then comes out, and when Itsumi demands his reasons for being there, she is perplexed when she hears that he wants a relationship. But this was a misunderstanding, as the relationship was not from him but from Yoshioka, who likes this legal and he begs her to do so as he could go for else. This concerns Itsumi as she wouldn't like to have someone searching for Sayo almost reveals herself considering searching for an but also Itsumi considers that this is not her problem. Later, Makoto informs Yoshioka and considers that because he thinks short people are cute and he is cute too, but Yoshioka calls him out, telling him that short boys are disgusting. Chapter 7. Atsushi is going to walk home with Hina, but this time she rejects him and claims they no longer can be friends as he always gets arrested whenever he is near her. However, Atsushi doesn't care and grabs her hand, declaring he wants to spend his life with her. Immediately, Yoshioka grabs him by his shoulder and calls him out because he can't touch them but rather appreciates them by far and calls him soul brother. Atsushi is confused thinking he is his brother, while Hina is scared of that. Atsushi tries to clear the issue by telling him that he's in a high grade, but Yoshioka considers this to be cocky. Not so long after that, the trio of police officers appears and salutes Atsushi and advises him to take care of him as today he didn't go to the commissary, which is good, but Yoshioka thinks of this like he has a connection with the police as he was in a high grade. The police officers question who he was and Atsushi answered that he was his brother. Abruptly, another man appears calling Yoshioka his little brother, but to the contrary, Yoshioka goes with Officer Miura complimenting her on her old age, making her angry. Chapter 8. Halloween is here and Atsumi and Sayo are reading a graveyard. Ultimate test, which Sayo wants to go, however Atsumi doesn't want to, but she tells Sayo that Take gifted her some tickets and Atsushi wants to go, so Sayo begs her to go. They finally go, and at the entrance, they find Yoshioka and Makoto, which Atsumi considers they were stalking her, but Makoto declares that this was only a coincidence with her as Yoshioka's goal was to find some there but not Atsumi. Then the rules are explained and everybody has to go in couples, and Sayo considers this is her legal OPP or 2 minutes to go with ATSUSI. But Atsushi goes with Hina and Yoshioka questions what she meant by legal, but he ignores it and tries to go with Atsumi, but she ignores him. In the labyrinth, Atsumi is bored by all the tricks and things of the lab, but suddenly is scared by Yoshioka filming her. On the other hand, Atsushi and Hina are together, but both of them get pretty scared and even more scared when they find a lantern, which only results to be Take, who has thousands of part-time jobs, but also Take scares them. Elsewhere, Sayo was trying to find Atsushi, but got frustrated and hurried up and dragged Makoto like a rag doll. In the end, Atsushi and Hina couldn't complete the labyrinth while everyone else did. Chapter 9. Yoshioka is having a moral dilemma with his love, and also Sayo is having one too. They coincidentally meet on a bridge and Yoshioka assumes that she is equal to him, but she brushes it off, declaring her problems are different from his. When she's going, she comments like, if he could grow up, I would love him, and Makoto thinks she's referring to him. At Miyagawa's house, Sayo is welcomed by Atsumi, who retires to serve some watermelons and sees Atsushi playing with a fan. Then Atsushi invites her to play with him and be a villainess, so she does and ends up confessing her love by pretending to be an alien who wants to forcibly marry him, but the hero defeats her and Atsumi, when she comes is confused and why Sayo is of embarrassment on the floor. Chapter 10. Summer continues and the teacher intern. Kawachi is enjoying her vacation while she's no longer an intern but now a full-time teacher. There's a basketball match, but the team is losing because Yoshioka is all gloomy and depressed. Makoto has a plan, but it's a horrible one. The plan consisted of him cross-dressing as a girl and cheering up Yoshioka on the stand, and it was successful as Yoshioka then goes with a savage determination to the battle. He ends up giving a beat-up to the other team, and everybody is glad of it. Then Makoto tries to hide the hat, and Yoshioka tells him that he knew that he was cheering him up, or that's what he thought, because Yoshioka believed it was Atsumi pretending to be a little girl, and Makoto says sorry to Atsumi mentally. On the other hand, Atsumi, Sayo, Hina, and Atsushi are in a karaoke. Elsewhere, Tetsuya and Tendo were being scolded by Futomi-sensei, while the officers were on duty as they were called for a that this time at Atsushi. Chapter 11. At night, Atsumi is repairing Atsushi's Randsell as he's growing up. Atsushi claims that he doesn't want to grow anymore, and Atsumi comforts him by telling him that growing is a wonderful thing and he should be grateful for it. With this, Atsushi goes to sleep, and Atsumi reminds him to not sleep with his Randsell on. After this, she goes and checks something in her closet, being the growing marks of Atsushi. The next day, Sayo is brushing her hair and dressing up for the night, forgetting everything about Atsushi. Then at night, she finds Atsumi and the cruel reality of Atsushi being with Hina, but this doesn't make her all gloomy as she accepts this fate. Then Atsushi and Hina spend time with her while Atsumi is having problems with some fireflies. Meanwhile, we got to see everyone in the cast, Yoshioka being the while Makoto is disappointed, the kids enjoying their night, Kawachi-sensei finally getting a boyfriend, the officers arresting some Yoshioka's brother following the older woman and Take having thousands of part-time jobs. While the story of the Miyagawa family is over for now, they're still growing and enjoying their life as everyone should do, so enjoy your life.